now. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Andy Suggers. Give us a wave, Andy. Andy's our resident data networks principal consultant. So most of you all know I came out of Telstra, so we all know how wonderful the large telcos are to deal with, and I'm very excited to work with Andy because he makes it all really easy and simple, and it sounds too good to be true. So we wanted to do this here from an expert today because it's not something we at Murdoch Webster we really advertise that we do Carriage, but we do Carriage for a lot of our customers, and we think it's actually getting more and more important to have carrier diversity. And obviously during COVID, that's the one thing that kept a lot of businesses going was their connectivity. So it's an important topic. Probably not as fancy as some of the other ones we talk about, but it's a good one because it's the backbone of most businesses. So Andy, I'm going to hand over to you, and thank you for your time today. No
worries. Thanks, Leanne. I've just had a little word from my headset saying recharge the battery, so I might just do a quick flick over of if I can. Actually, we should be all right. All right. Yeah, as Leanne mentioned, we're offering to alleviate the pain that dealing with telcos typically comes with in your organisation. That's not something that you really want to be spending a lot of your time in managing. And in order to do that, we've partnered with a number of telcos. So I've tried to put as many logos as I can on the page there for you to see who we actually have wholesale partnerships with, and this allows us to leverage networks from multiple carriers to deliver services for you guys as the end customer. And as part of the process, we work with you guys. We plan what your WAN and your internet network looks like, rather than just trying to sell you bandwidth or a particular carriage service. And then we also do service qualifications for your particular site locations and the addresses for those. So that gives us an understanding as to which of the carriers are actually available, who's got fibre out the front, and that then allows us to look at service availability and also then move into price discovery with the carriers. By utilising multiple carriers as well, we can leverage your existing network investments such as SD-WAN, or if you're looking to go to an SD-WAN platform, you have that flexibility of multi-carrier connectivity. Traditionally, you would only be able to use a single carrier for things like MPLS because it's a closed ecosystem. But again, we have MPLS structures where we can leverage last mile connectivity from multiple carriers. So again, it really gives that flexibility to be able to provide you with the best edge network access available. Now, I guess the best part of it is we deliver much faster. We have those escalation contacts within carriers that we can call on and push to deliver services, and we also aggregate all of those carriers into a single bill for you. So billing, account management, and support services all come through Murdoch Webster as your single point of contact, essentially. And that's really awesome, Andy. I think everyone on this call's probably had some billing issues or more than once in their lifetime, so that's a big thing. It makes it so much easier. Absolutely. And also chasing things like chasing delivery for carriage services. We often see carriers saying that services will be delivered by a particular date, but then weeks go by and there's no updates, and then that date happens to have been pushed out by 2 months and no one's called you to let you know that there's been disruptions that have caused those delivery dates. So we really want to make sure that you guys are all kept in the loop as part of carriage orders and provisioning and that sort of aspect, so that you're across it and you can plan your network changes accordingly. I think that's a really big one as well, Andy, because coming from a large telco as well,
you know, there's so much process, and I think we touched on this yesterday when we were talking about today's chat. Maybe sort of explain that process with the telcos of the ordering system and assigning to different teams. And there's so many, I guess, steps that go into their processes, which we're fortunate enough not to have to follow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that just placing an order goes in with your account manager, who's the face that you typically have with a telco. But then once that order goes in, it will land in the queue of the orders team, and then that order confirmation needs to come through, and that needs to be allocated to the provisioning team within the organisation. And you know, we know that a lot of carriers offshore that type of role, so trying to then follow up and get a status update on that provisioning. You know, it's not something that you guys really want to waste your time doing. So, you know, we do that regularly, and as I said, we have the points of contact within the carriers that we can use to chase those sorts of updates. Yeah, right down to provisioning, delivery. You know, NBN is a classic example where they'll come to site, provision a connection, disappear without telling anyone what they've done, or whether it's finished, or whether it's, you know, requires something else to be done. You know, we stay across all of that, and we know that there's an NBN appointment booked for tomorrow. So at the end of the day, or the day after, we call NBN or call the carrier to get that service update to provide that to you. So yeah, that kind of leads into, you know, what it is that Murdoch Webster offers specifically. We're kind of like a broker. You know, we don't care which carrier delivers the service to you guys. We have no vested interest in delivering a Telstra link to customers, or a AAPT link. You know, we do a service qualification for all of your addresses to find out who is available, right down to what technology type there is. You know, is it fibre? Does that carrier offer? Are they offering their services over an NBN Enterprise Ethernet network? And you know, we put together some options for you based on your requirements. So if you say, we definitely don't want a Telstra network, then okay, we'll make sure that we take that out of the mix, and we'll look at a Vocus or an AAPT or a Aussie Broadband, or it might be a fixed wireless provider for redundancy perspective.
And Andy, that's something we hear often, right? And I think what I've discovered is that it's not so much that people don't want the Telstra network, because, you know, all said and done, it is probably the best network in Australia.
Exactly.
They just don't like dealing with Telstra. So what you know, is great about this service that Andy offers with us is that he is the face of your carrier. So you can still enjoy the benefits and the superiority, I guess you would say, of the Telstra network, but it's a wholesale division that we're dealing with. So you can still have a Telstra network and not deal with Telstra, which I think a lot of people are getting a little bit excited about as well.
Yeah, so you absolutely. So you get the reach of the Telstra network into regional locations. But as you know, as I said, part of that service qualification is we look for what else is available at those locations. So we can give you a Telstra. So Telstra is offering a service now where they can deliver multiple services over their fibre network. So if you say, I've got an MPLS connection and I want an internet service at my site, great. Telstra can turn that on, they enable it on the fibre, and you've got two set services. Customers don't understand is that it's delivered over the same fibre. So you're not getting internet and MPLS as diverse connections, meaning that if your MPLS goes down, it's fine, we'll use our internet connection. Because if someone puts a digger through the fibre out the front, that's knocking out both internet and MPLS. So
I think carrier diversity is a really interesting topic for today as well, just about how we do that. And obviously with the different vendors and telcos that are in the marketplace, it's not so much about, you know, where they come in, it's also the different data centers that they sit in. So maybe Andy, explain a recent one that we did where we had carrier diversity, but we also got into the detail of actually making sure those carriers were data center diverse as well.
Yeah, so you know, that's exactly right. There's diversity is not just one type of diversity. So look, we'll jump onto the next slide because that gets into a bit more detail of the diversity. So Leanne's mentioned carrier diversity and data center diversity already. So different carriers, that protects against routing failures. And obviously different carriers often have different fiber runs as well actually in the street. So that's the next point. If you want true diversity, you want one carrier fiber to come out of your building and go left down the street, and you want the other carrier to come out the building and turn right down the street. That way, if you do get that, classic AGL, digging up to lay new gas pipes and they rip through a fiber, the chances of them only going through one of them is pretty good. If there is no fiber diversity, you could look at technology types. So using a fiber for your primary and a fixed wireless as a secondary diverse path. And that, again, gives you that protection against infrastructure diversity. And the data center diversity is really around points of presence that carriers use. So if there is, one example was when, I think it was Warrnambool, they had a Telstra exchange that caught fire, and there were a number of services that went offline for people in that region, where had they had, say, a fixed wireless connection to a nearby exchange, then another exchange, then there may have been a protective layer there where they could fail over to that service and at least maintain a level of business continuity. So we can design your carriage using all of those different types of diversity types to ensure that you've got that protection against all the scenarios that you don't have control over. So carrier routing, data centers, and fiber runs in the street. So I thought I'd visualize it a little bit better. You can sort of see in the mid top right, there's a little pin on the map, and we've got a red line that goes down to the left of the screen. So that for one customer, that was going to be their MPLS connection into the data center hosted out of North Melbourne. And they wanted to make sure that they had an internet connection as well that was completely diverse to MPLS, because they had their own SD-WAN overlay that they wanted to be able to utilize to manage their business continuity plan and have their own overlay failover. So the blue line comes out of the building, goes the opposite way down the street, takes a completely different path to the exhibition exchange in Melbourne. And that was their two termination points within the network. That also gives them the ability to route over their MPLS and out an internet gateway in the North Melbourne exchange, as well as being able to interconnect to their other SD-WAN sites over the internet network through the exhibition exchange building. So it just gives you a bit more clarity, I guess, in how we approach that WAN design with you that you probably don't get with other telcos unless they actually have that diverse capability themselves.
And some of them may not know either as well. It's keeping tabs on what your competition's doing in that space. This is an interesting one for me. This is what I really loved about working or coming across to Murdoch Webster and working with Andy on these type of engagements. So this was an example of a customer and the varying sites that they had. And what Andy was able to do was go through and actually provide the customer with so much detail as to what was available at each of those sites. And it didn't mention who the carrier was or anything like that. Obviously, there's no secret. We would certainly share that with you. But this, for the point of this table, it was more just saying, for instance, Queen's Road in Melbourne, which Derek, I think you'll be happy to know because that's near you guys, is, direct fibre access and the setup costs, the monthly costs, and then what that looks like if you're doing NBN, EE, high COS, et cetera, et cetera. And as you go down the list, you'll see in Northern Territory, which is obviously an interesting one. You've got high COS, low COS, and NBN 100 and 200 meg there. And you can see the differences are quite significant in some of those prices. So, Andy, I'll get you to talk through that.
Yeah, exactly. So this customer actually didn't care which carrier we went with. They just said, just get us the best deal for the bandwidth required that we need. And so basically what we do is we present the speeds, technologies and prices. So as you can see, there are quite varying prices. I mean, if you have a look at Queen's Domain in Tasmania, a direct fibre link with a carrier was $5,000 a month, quite a lot for a 200 meg link. We were able to get them an NBN Enterprise Ethernet connection. It was a low cost, so high and low cost is basically the SLA that NBN Enterprise Ethernet services come with. So guaranteed bandwidth, one-to-one contention, or best effort bandwidth, and a 1:5 contention ratio. So what we did with them is we provided them with the options to choose what they wanted. So I think Marara and Burswood, NT and WA are good examples. We had an NBN Enterprise Ethernet low cos as their secondary and a high cos as their primary, or we can have a direct fibre. So carriers price their fibre based on regions, so zones, those sorts of things. So we also take that into account. Just have a quick look. I think if we have a look at, where is it? Tennyson, Queensland direct fibre versus ACT direct fibre. Now, it's 2.5 times the price. Now, what we were able to do for Tennyson was provide them, because they wanted gigabit links at both those sites. So we could, with diverse carriers. So the only options that we were able to do there was so that direct fibre is a Telstra wholesale fibre, and then we went NBN Enterprise Ethernet high cos with Vocus. So that gave them 2 comparative connections, approximately the same price in that sense there, that delivered that service requirement that they want for redundancy. Just getting back to the ACT side of things, that's a 48-month contract. So we were able to manipulate pricing, upfront pricing, set up costs, and work with the carriers to really get you the best option. Again, this customer was happy to go with a 48-month contract because it changed the upfront cost from 10 grand to 750 because the carrier was happy to amortize the setup, the build cost over a longer period. So there's a lot of detail and a lot of intricacy that we go into to try and deliver this table. And the green highlights are what we recommend the customer go with as the preferred primary service. But it's freedom for them to choose as well what they want to go with.
So today, it wasn't meant to be a long and tedious presentation. It was really short, sharp, and to the point. Does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to ask? I know we've got some regional customers on the phone today, as well as some city customers.
Yeah. The summary being that we're multi-carrier. You get a single bill from us for all those carriers, so you don't have to manage the different carrier accounts and support paths and escalations and all those sorts of things. And you've got a problem with any telco, or you need a new service or a change of service, you just call us.
Glenn, what would you like to ask?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if you guys provide SD-WAN as a service on top of those carriage services, or whether it's just the raw carriage.
So you're talking about wanting that as an OPEX type model as opposed to an SD-WAN project delivered under a CapEx budget?
That's right. So rather than buying an appliance and having you guys configure it or something, whether you just provide that as a monthly service.
It is something we're looking at, Glenn. It's not something we've got in the market at the moment, but happy to have a chat with you offline. I know Chris and I are having lots of discussions around that at present. So
yeah, and that also then leads into that managed service side as well. So instead of it just being we're looking after your carriage side of it, we're looking after your WAN edge, so to speak. So everything from your SD-WAN appliance into the carriage, managing that last mile, making sure that your billing and all that sort of stuff is correct as well.
Fantastic, thanks.
It's an interesting question, Glenn, because everything's going as a service at the moment. So watch this space, where the next Hear from an Expert next month is actually about RPA as a service. So we're talking about robotics and automation in the business processes and IT processes, and we're going to be launching that next month as a service as well. So the SD-WAN's the one after. I'll come back to you on that. Lauren,
if you're looking at it from a more of the commercial aspect, as opposed to the managed service side of it, if you're wanting just an SD-WAN topology to be deployed and billed as part of a monthly construct, then I'm sure that's something from a commercial perspective that we could work out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Leanne, probably a customer question more than anything, but as you would know here, besides getting a carrier bill each month, that's about all I know about my network. Can you include the discovery services beyond and suggestions through, because it's been identified as well overdue here, the telco issue, and you would know by the amount of tickets. But is that something that you can do in this in the edgy space, especially seeing, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Andy, we could have a chat with Lauren offline as to what she's currently got, and then you can certainly do that survey as to what's available, and we can start putting a spreadsheet together for you to give you some options. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Lauren, are you talking about you've got a connection currently, it doesn't seem to be doing the job, and you'd like us to do a bit of a network audit, look at a traffic profile, and come
change
up with
and the phone system that's sitting through here as well.
Right. Yeah, look, all of those sorts of consultative pieces we can certainly incorporate, and that'll feed into what type of carriage services would accommodate those particular business requirements and those core apps that you're running as well. So, like the phone system, you might have an old PBX type system. We could potentially replace that with a per monthly cost for a handset.
Yeah.
If you've got 100 handsets, it's just the monthly cost times 100.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, all good. Thank you guys for your time today, and I hope you find these little updates helpful and informative.